Hello, you're listening to the Tsunami of Truth podcast for August 6th, 2026. I'm Kristy Allen here on jmcbroadcasting.com. Some people are so conditioned they think that taxes are the price we pay for a civilized society. But judging by the spending habits in Washington for the past 100 years, we must be paying for a luxury resort on Mars with room service. Donald Trump said our country was the strongest from 1870 to 1913. You know why? It was all tariff-based, he said. We had no income tax. So welcome back to the Tsunami of Truth. Today, we're cutting straight through the government's favorite magic trick, making your hard-earned money disappear before you even get to see it. Now, if you ask the average person on the street, they think paying federal income tax is as old as George Washington's wooden teeth. They assume James Madison sat down in Philadelphia in 1787 and said, "Hey, fellas, let's make sure the federal government takes a 30% cut of every citizen's paycheck so we can fund foreign study programs 200 years from now." But that is not how this country was built. For more than 120 years after the Constitution took effect, there was no permanent individual income tax. Think about that. The nation was built, it was expanded and constructed transcontinental railroads and became an industrial superpower, all without a single 1040 form or an IRS agent hiding in your bushes. So how did the federal government fund itself? Tariffs. Under Article 1 of the Constitution, foreign trade was where the federal government drew its revenue. If a foreign company wanted to sell their goods in our market back then, they paid a fee at the dock. It was simple. It protected American workers, and it left your personal earnings completely alone. Fast forward to today, and President Trump has been loudly calling back to this exact system. He's even taken aim at local property taxes, calling high property taxes an unfair burden that means you never truly own your own home. When you look at how property taxes make you feel like a tenant renting your own house from the county, you start to see why people are fed up with the entire tax structure. So how did we go from a tariff-funded republic to a world where you need a CPA and 3 prayers just to file your taxes? Enter 1913 and the 16th Amendment. Before 1913, the Constitution explicitly required that direct taxes had to be apportioned among the states based on population. That was a safeguard built by the founders specifically to make personal income taxes almost impossible for Congress to pull off. And when politicians sold the 16th Amendment to the public, do you know what they promised? They swore up and down that the income tax would only affect the top 1% of ultra-wealthy earners. It was literally pitched as a tiny 1% tax on millionaires. Well, isn't that the classic government comedy bit? It's like a friend asking to borrow $5 for coffee and then moving into your spare bedroom for 20 years. While earlier federal income taxes, such as the Civil War tax of 1861, were explicitly passed as temporary emergency measures, the 16th Amendment permanently granted Congress the constitutional authority to levy income taxes. However, the history behind its passage involves tactical maneuvers and misleading sales pitches. When conservative Senate leaders like Nelson Aldrich first proposed the amendment in 1909 during intense tariff debates, they did so as a temporary maneuver to derail immediate income tax legislation, confident that 3/4 of state legislatures would never actually ratify it. When it unexpectedly gained momentum and passed in 1913, and you have to wonder what happened to have that get pulled off, politicians reassuringly pitched the resulting income tax as an exclusive burden on the top 1% of ultra-wealthy earners. Of course, they were lying through their teeth and masking the reality that within a few decades, wartime expansions and administrative growth would turn personal income tax into a permanent, broad-based deduction for almost every working American. And within a few decades, that tax on the elite mutated into an automatic payroll deduction for virtually every working man and woman in America. Temporary. Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, truth is, and this one's a heavy tsunami of truth, patriots, we traded a system where foreign competitors paid to enter our market for a system where American citizens are audited for selling an old couch on the internet. That brings us to what's happening right now in the tax landscape. We're seeing a historic push to pull federal hands out of the pockets of everyday workers. Thanks to Donald Trump, America First is the pivot toward sovereignty. And look at three major tax policy shifts happening right now: the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime deductions. Under new tax reforms, workers are finally seeing direct relief. Service workers, like salon staff and gig workers, can deduct up to $25,000 in qualified tip income. Plus, hourly workers pulling extra shifts can deduct up to $12,500 or $25,000 for joint filers in FLSA overtime pay. The translation to that is that the government is finally admitting that if you put in 60 hours a week, they shouldn't punish you for working harder. Thank you. The American-made auto loan deduction is another one. There's a new tax deduction allowing Americans to deduct up to $10,000 in car loan interest per year, as long as the vehicle was assembled right here in the USA. It rewards domestic manufacturing directly instead of rewarding overseas factories. Very smart move. The tariff pivot is that while domestic income tax relief expands for working families, targeted tariffs on foreign imports are being used to balance the scales. The philosophy is shifting back to the founders. Can you feel it? You got to stop taxing the labor of the American worker and start charging the foreign corporations who profit off our consumer market. Now let's get to the really funny part. And by funny, I mean the kind of funny where you laugh so you don't cry. When politicians in Washington or commentators overseas cry about tariffs raising prices, you got to ask, where was all this deep concern for money when it was our tax dollars being shipped across the ocean by the billions, right? So let's look at USAID and foreign assistance programs. For decades, hardworking Americans in Ohio and Texas have worked overtime and have their income taxed at the source, and then they watch Washington turn around and ship that money to foreign nonprofits. We've funded everything from social initiatives in foreign nations to programs promoting or performing abortions overseas under previous administrative policies. And every time a conservative administration enforces the Mexico City policy or Helms Amendment to block tax dollars from funding foreign abortions, Washington politicians throw a fit. But the moment the political tide turns, the money faucet turns right back on. Think about how ridiculous that is. You work all week, the federal government takes a chunk of your earnings and sends it to an NGO on the other side of the planet to push policies you completely disagree with. And then the moment we say, hey, how about we stop taxing our own people to fund foreign projects and instead charge foreign companies a tariff to sell here? Yeah, well, that's when the globalist establishment gasps. If foreign entities don't like American tariffs, here's a friendly reminder. The American taxpayer is done acting as the world's personal ATM. Now, if you thought foreign aid spending was wild, grab your popcorn because the comedy gets even better when we talk about foreign influence. You got commentators like Juan O'Savin pointing out claims that foreign actors, specifically China, have had their fingers in election integrity efforts across 71 countries worldwide. And they're not alone. But we're talking 71 countries. Think about the sheer nerve of that. We're out here being told by mainstream media pundits, oh, don't ask questions, don't worry about foreign interference. Meanwhile, foreign players are allegedly playing digital musical chairs with election systems around the globe. And what has Washington done for years? Sent our tax dollars abroad through foreign aid to teach other nations about democracy, while foreign entities turn around and meddle in ours. You couldn't write a sitcom this ridiculous if you tried. So when American workers stand up and say, hey, how about some reparations for the American taxpayer? People act shocked. Look, reparations does not mean printing more fake money from a broke government. The ultimate form of taxpayer reparations is reclaiming our financial sovereignty. And if foreign regimes want to play games with global trade and election integrity, guess what? The cover charge at the door just went up. It's called a tariff. Our Commander-in-Chief Donald Trump said, as time goes by, I believe the tariffs paid for by foreign countries will, like in the past, substantially replace the modern-day system of income tax, taking a great financial burden off the people that I love, unquote. So when Trump tells us that tariffs are a good thing, that there are countries that owe us from various assorted things, and that he is making things right and fair again using tariffs, I think we should believe him. You want to sell your foreign-made goods in our stores? Great. Step right up to the port of entry, pull out your checkbook, and pay the fee to the American Republic. We're taking that money, putting it back into domestic production, and cutting the tax burden on the American worker who was forced to foot the bill for decades. The free ride is officially over. The tariffs are on, and the American worker is back in the driver's seat. Now, if you care about the Republic, you have to follow the money trail. The Constitution was built to protect the fruit of your labor, not to surrender it to foreign programs or bureaucratic bloat. The closer we get to a system where foreign tariffs support the nation and working people keep what they earn, the closer we get to the economic freedom our founders intended. What do you think? Are you ready to see federal income taxes phased out in favor of foreign tariffs? If you are, then drop your thoughts in the comments below and share this episode with a friend. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Until next time, keep searching, stay vigilant, and stand firm in the truth. Hey, thanks for listening to the Tsunami of Truth podcast here on the John Michael Chambers Alternative News Network.
John Michael Chambers continues to lead the way with JMC Broadcasting's military and intelligence reporting. All broadcasts are free to the public. Want more? Get up close and personal with John and guests by joining JMC's Patriot Premium Portal for just $9.99 monthly subscription. Receive JMC's weekly newsletter update, which includes a 60-minute audio of JMC Unplugged, where John highlights in a candid conversation the events of the week. Hear John like you've never heard him before. It's time to get your questions answered live in real time with John Michael Chambers and his highly valued military and intelligence guests. As part of your Patriot Premium subscription, each month you're given access to John and guests on screen for a 60-minute live Q&A. Guests may include, but not limited to, Juan O'Savin, Ricardo Bosi, Sheila Holm, Blaine Holt, Michael Jaco, Sheriff Richard Mack, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, the Patriot Street Fighter Scott McKay, Dr. Mark Sherwood, and many, many others. For just $9.99 per month, you gain access to all this and more. Your subscription fee helps fuel the JMC broadcasting engine at this critical juncture in this global defense war. Visit jmcbroadcasting.com and click on the Patriot Premium Portal subscription promo. Sign up before December 31st, 2025 and receive a free signed paperback copy of John's newest book, Global Financial Reset, surviving and thriving the transition. We are at war, and victory is ours. The dawning of the golden age is upon us. And remember, where we go one, we go all. Subscribe today at jmcbroadcasting.com. Won't you join us?